This happened several years ago, during a night round that had nothing unusual about it. It wasn't my first time walking that section of Yosemite, and it wasn't a strange night either. The weather was stable, no strong wind, and the forest sounded the way it always does. That's why what happened afterward stayed with me. I was moving along a stretch that runs beside a gentle slope with dense vegetation on both sides. At one point, I heard a dull sound, like something large pushing branches from inside the forest. It wasn't a crash or anything violent, just two heavy impacts, spaced a few seconds apart. I stopped and looked toward where the sound came from. I didn't see any movement. I stood there, trying to pick something out between the trunks. That's when I noticed something that hadn't been there before. It didn't appear suddenly. I simply became aware that there was a shape where there hadn't been one. It was a face, not a full body, just the head and upper part peering out from the vegetation at a height that didn't match any animal I knew from the area. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It was just there, looking in my direction. The face was large, wider than a man's, with pronounced cheekbones and a flat nose. The color wasn't black or dark brown like it's often described, but muted, like damp earth. The hair there was short, almost absent around the eyes and mouth. What I remember most was the expression. There was no aggression, no surprise, just a steady, focused look. I stayed still. I didn't feel immediate panic. It was more a sense of being out of place, as if I were the one who had stepped into something I wasn't meant to. We stayed like that for several minutes. I didn't move, neither did it. I didn't hear breathing or footsteps, nothing. To make sure I wasn't imagining things, I marked the exact spot in my mind: a fallen log to the right, a light-colored rock a bit lower down, and the approximate height where I saw the face. Then I kept walking. I didn't look back. Hours later, near dawn, I passed that point again. I stopped and looked at the same place with more light. Where I had seen the face before, there was now an empty, clear space from which the deeper forest could be seen. There was no way something could have been there without me noticing it. That confirmed it hadn't been a trick of shadows. I didn't find clear footprints, but the ground was compacted, as if something heavy had stood there for a long time. There were no signs of a quick escape or freshly broken branches. I never reported this formally. Years later, I read an account from a camper who had spent time in a nearby area with his dogs. He said the dogs would usually stand their ground against coyotes and big cats, but one night they ran after something and came back terrified, refusing to leave the shelter. They never behaved the same way in that place again. I can't say for certain what I saw, only know that something was there, watching, completely still, and that it knew the surroundings better than I did. Since then, when I walk at night, I pay more attention to what doesn't move than to what does. This happened during an early patrol, still night, but with that bluish tone that signals dawn is not far off. It wasn't a long shift. In fact, I expected it to be quiet because that area rarely caused issues. It's a more open stretch, with gentler slopes and tall trees spaced well apart. I was walking along the trail when I caught a strong, sudden smell. It wasn't decay or anything chemical. It was damp and earthy, like wet hair mixed with old soil. It stood out because there was no water nearby, and it hadn't rained in days. I stopped and tested the air, thinking of a large animal. That's when I heard footsteps. Not branches snapping or leaves dragging. Footsteps. Heavy, slow, deliberate. They came from the left, running parallel to the trail, keeping distance. I froze and turned off my flashlight so I wouldn't give myself away. The steps continued for a few seconds, then stopped. I waited. Nothing happened for a while. The smell lingered, hanging in the air. That's when I saw it, but not in the way you expect to see something like that. I looked ahead and noticed movement on the other side of the trail, about 30 meters away. I only saw the legs. From mid-thigh down, they moved behind the trunks, passing from one tree to the next, with a stride far too long for a human. It wasn't running. It didn't move like any animal I know. The movement was careful, controlled. The legs were thick, covered in dark hair, longer toward the lower part. The knees bent in a way that didn't resemble a man's. I didn't see the feet clearly, but I could see how the weight dropped, compressing the ground with every step. The terrain vibrated slightly. I never saw the torso or the head. It was as if it moved at just the right height to avoid being fully seen. Every time it seemed like I might get a clearer view, a trunk or a shadow cut it off. The smell intensified when it stopped for the last time. I stood motionless, counting time without checking my watch. I didn't hear breathing, growls, or any vocal sounds, just that presence moving with intention. At some point, the steps resumed, this time angling away toward denser ground. The smell began to fade almost immediately. When I finally worked up the nerve to turn the flashlight back on and step a few meters off the trail, I found marks on the ground. Not clear footprints, but compressed areas. Vegetation pressed down in long lines, as if something had passed through without stopping. None of it matched a human pattern. The rest of the patrol passed without incident. In the morning, with better light, I returned to the spot. The marks were still there, but the smell was completely gone. I never saw its face. I never heard a sound that could be recorded or played back, but I saw how something moved that didn't fit anything I know. It didn't act like a normal animal or like a person. It acted like something that knew exactly how much to show and when to withdraw. I had gone out early and had been walking for hours without anything unusual happening. The route followed the course of a low creek, almost dry at that time of year, with isolated pools where water stayed trapped between rocks. It was a quiet place, the kind where you let your guard down because there's nothing to watch over. I stopped at one of those pools to rest. I turned off my flashlight and sat on a flat stone. The sound of the water was minimal, just a steady drip. That's when I heard something different, very close, on the other side of the creek. It wasn't a footstep, not branches either. It was a slow, heavy splashing, like someone putting their hands into the water without care. I thought of a bear, though it didn't sound quite right. I stayed still and let my eyes adjust. About 15 meters away, I saw movement. First, the water shifting, then a leaning shape. What was in front of me wasn't standing. It was crouched, almost squatting, with its torso angled forward. Its back was broad, covered in dark, long hair, matted from the damp. It didn't seem alert. It was focused on the pool. I watched it bring a hand into the water. The hand was enormous, bigger than what my mind was willing to accept, with long fingers that closed clumsily, as if precision didn't matter. It drank directly, lowering its head to the water, unconcerned with the noise it made. The head was low and solid. At first, I couldn't make out the face clearly, only the profile, a sloped forehead, a pronounced jaw. There was nothing exaggerated about it, nothing monstrous. It felt primitive, like something built to endure, not to be pleasing. I kept watching longer than I should have. I felt like I was seeing something I wasn't meant to, the way you do when you accidentally step into a private space. I didn't move. I didn't take a deep breath. The air carried a strong animal smell mixed with damp earth and mud. At one point, it lifted its head, not toward me. It looked upstream, as if it had noticed something far off. Then I saw the face more clearly. The eyes were small compared to the skull, set deep, and they didn't reflect what little light there was. The expression wasn't aggressive or curious. It looked tired. Then something happened that confirmed it wasn't a bear or anything familiar. It shifted its weight slightly, without standing fully, and placed one hand on a rock to steady itself. The rock sank a little into the mud. The weight was immense, but the movement was controlled, quiet. It didn't see me, or if it did, it didn't care. It moved a few steps past the pool, crouched again, and began handling something in the water, as if searching for small fish or just stirring the bottom. There was no urgency. It wasn't scanning its surroundings like a threatened animal. It was doing something routine. I understood that if I moved, I would break that moment. I backed away very slowly, without turning on the flashlight, following the trail until the creek was out of sight. The next morning I returned. The pool was disturbed, the mud churned up, and there were deep impressions around it, not clear footprints, but flattened areas, as if something heavy had leaned there repeatedly. Whatever it was that I saw, it wasn't looking for me, and it wasn't hunting. It was simply living its routine in a place I had always believed was empty.